They dropped him like garbage. A broken soldier, half burned, half breathing. His pulse weaker than the smoke curling from the ruined carrier that spat him out over a planet Earth had already marked as lost. He hit the sands of care's cradle. Like a prayer no one meant to whisper, limbs twisted, suit torn, no backup, no hope. But someone was watching. The air shimmered above him like heat stroke. But the figure that stepped through it wasn't a hallucination. She was tall, inhumanly tall, draped in living cloth that moved like shadow silk. Her skin silver blue, glowing softly under twin moons, was etched with sacred glyphs that pulsed like breath. And her eyes. They weren't eyes at all, not in the way humans knew. They were galaxies, spinning, seeing through. She knelt beside his wrecked body. She didn't flinch at the blood, didn't recoil at the smell of dying flesh. Her fingers, slender, tipped in bioluminescent light, brushed against his throat, then his chest, then lower, not to wound, not to understand. He gasped. She inhaled sharply. "You breathe," she said, her voice like stardust and thunder. Then, they lied. "You are not dead." He coughed blood and tried to speak, tried to move. But her palm gently pressed him back to the ground. "No," she whispered. "Be still, my child. Let care take your pain. Let me see if the prophecy is true." He didn't know what she meant. He didn't care. He was fading. But her touch felt like fire and ice at once. Not healing, not yet. But searching and finding something she hadn't expected. "You are divine," she said, almost to herself. Then she stood on. The shadows bowed around her. They left him to die in alien dust. But to her, he was sacred. Subscribe to hear the rest of their forbidden awakening. Your support fuels these stories through the stars. When he woke again, it wasn't to pain. It was to warmth. He lay in a crystalline chamber that pulsed with breath, almost alive. Soft vines glowed along the ceiling. Nectar dripped from unseen roots. The air was sweet and heavy. His wounds gone, his uniform gone, his body bare. And so was she. She stood at the edge of the chamber, back turned, arms raised, her form silhouetted against cascading light. Her long silver hair floated as if under water, and her skin shimmered with glyphs, glowing brighter the longer she stared at him. "You lived," she said, turning. "Your body healed faster than even our kind can explain. I touched your broken heart and it beat. For me." He sat up, suddenly aware of his nakedness and hers. She didn't flinch, she didn't hide. She simply approached. The others said, "You were just flesh, just war, just death." Her voice dropped, silk and shadows. "But I looked at you and I saw fire. I saw something we forgot in our sterile thrones. I saw longing." He tried to speak, but her fingers found his lips. She, no more war speak. No earth allegiance here. No rank, no orders. Her palm slid to his chest, and the glyphs on her body pulsed brighter. Only breath, only blood, only what this wants. His heart thumped against her touch, and she smiled like a goddess tasting. "Rain, you fell from the sky like a dead thing," she said. "But to me, you were a sinner, holy defiance against the silence we've known for too long." She leaned closer. Her breath tickled his lips. Her body radiated heat and power and desire that wasn't rushed. It was ritualistic, sacred, and when her mouth finally touched his, it wasn't a kiss, it was worship. Asterisk, he hadn't imagined it. The softness of her lips, the way her skin pulsed against his, the taste like sunlight caught in moonlight was real to real. It wasn't a hallucination. Not anymore. She kissed him like he was carved from prophecy, like her entire planet had waited for him to drop from the sky. And he let her. Her mouth didn't just meet his. It invited, explored. Her hands moved, not to take but to learn. They touched his ribs as if memorizing them, slid across his spine, as if rewriting his pain. Every place she touched awakened like it had forgotten sensation. He pulled back, breathless, overwhelmed. "Why me?" he asked, barely a whisper. She tilted her head, her violet gold eyes locked with his, unblinking. "Because you fell." "That's not you fell from the sky," she said softly, trailing her fingers down his shoulder. "We built machines to bring the stars to us, but you were given, offered, broken, yes, but not dead, not soulless. You bled. You cried, you screamed." She pressed her palm to his heart, and something in him cracked. "I've touched 1,000 minds," she continued, "but none screamed with life like yours." The chamber pulsed around them like it agreed. The vines glowed brighter. The air thickened. He swallowed hard. His voice rasped with disbelief and awe. "This place, where are we?" She leaned closer until her forehead pressed gently to his. "You're in the temple of care's heart. It's alive, like me, and now, like you." He shivered. Not from cold, from the weight of her gaze. "You healed me," he said. "No," she corrected gently. "You healed. I merely opened the door." She brushed her lips against his neck, not kissing, just feeling. "Your body is fire, your soul unburnt. And your touch," her voice trembled, "is the first thing that's made me feel in 100 years. He didn't know when his hands had found her waist, didn't remember moving, but there she was, in his arms, warm, glowing, powerful, divine. Her temple had no altar, no priesthood, just her, and the only offering she wanted was him. "You shouldn't want me," he said, though he was already pulling her closer. "I don't," she breathed against his mouth. "I need you." Their mouths met, agonand. This time it wasn't sacred, it was hungry. He was supposed to be a casualty, but she made him holy. Subscribe for more stories where love rewrites destiny. Your heartbeat keeps this channel alive. Their bodies tangled like stars caught in orbit. She led, not with command, but with desire. Her hips pressed against his, slow and deliberate, and he realized she wasn't used to this either. She might have ruled galaxies, lived for centuries, but intimacy, flesh, real connection. She trembled too. He slid his fingers down her back, across the glowing symbols carved into her skin. They pulsed faster beneath his touch. Her breath hitched. She arched into him, and he whispered something he didn't even realize he'd been holding in his chest since Earth. "You're not alone." "Anymore." She froze for a moment, then exhaled, slowly, deeply, as if those 4 words shattered something sacred. Her temple was her body, her sanctuary, was this moment, her faith, now wrapped around him like a second skin. They moved together quietly at first, like prayers, then louder, like storms. Skin met skin, mouths searched. Their moans echoed into the glowing air like hymnals, rewritten with sweat and need. And when she cried out, body trembling, head thrown back in celestial abandon, he realized the divine doesn't live in stars. It screams through skin, and she wasn't just an alien goddess. Anymore she was his. He didn't sleep, not because he couldn't, because she wouldn't let him. Not with words she never ordered. She didn't chain him or demand his loyalty. No, she invited him to stay, again and again. With her eyes, with her touch, with the raw, sacred tremble of her voice each time she whispered his name like it wasn't a name at all, but a spell that pulled stars from the sky and breath from her chest. And he stayed, through the dust-colored light of Care's moons. He worshipped her with fingers that used to pull triggers, now tracing the curves of a being who made divinity look touchable. He explored her the way a dying man touches sunlight, desperate, reverent, and just a little afraid it might vanish. But she didn't vanish. She opened, like a galaxy unfolding for him. Alone her skin glowed where he kissed. Her sighs turned to soft whimpers. And when he said her name, not the title she was given, but the one she shared with only him, her body arched as if the universe inside her couldn't hold still. "You weren't meant to fall," she whispered, trembling beneath. "Him, you were meant to arrive." "I don't belong here," he murmured, tracing the delicate glowing lines along her hips. "You do now." Her fingers glided to the side of his neck, then his chest, then lower. A palm pressed over his heart. The glyphs in her hand lit up, forming a language he couldn't read but somehow felt. "What? What is that?" he asked, his breath shallow. She didn't answer with words. She marked him. She didn't beg. She marked. "Want more stories where desire rewrites destiny? Hit subscribe and follow the fire through the stars." The mark burned, but not with pain, with belonging. It carved itself across his skin in light, not ink. The pulse of it echoed in his chest, his veins, his very breath. And she watched him as it happened, silent, breathless, glowing from within. Her voice was a whisper caught between awe and longing. No one has ever accepted it before. He blinked, body pulsing with heat and light. "Accepted what?" "My claim." His breath caught. "I wasn't trying to own you," she added quickly, her fingers brushing the edge of the mark. He kissed her before she could finish. Not because she needed silencing, because she needed believing. And in that moment, he did. He believed her, not her throne, not her species, not the myths that surrounded her name, her. He pulled her close, lips trailing down her shoulder. She gasped, her hands sliding into his hair, her thighs wrapping around him like gravity that refused to let go. "You're mine now," she whispered into his ear. Not as a queen, but as a woman who had finally felt something she couldn't. "Control, I've always been," he whispered back. That night didn't end. It unfolded. He lost track of time inside her temple body. Her thighs became scripture, her prayer, her moans litany, and the way she trembled when he entered her again, slowly, deeply, like a promise etched in flesh. He could never forget it, nor did he want to, because when she cried out his name as she shattered beneath him, it wasn't just pleasure, it was devotion. And when they collapsed together under glowing vines and the breath of Care itself, he knew something irreversible had happened. She had marked him, but he had ruined her dot, not with violence, not with conquest, with something her kind had long forgotten. Love, asterisk. They found him in the morning. Not her people, the priests of light, the armored guards of the starward caste, beings draped in translucent robes and contempt. Their feet didn't touch the ground, their eyes didn't blink, but they saw everything, especially the naked, scarred human sleeping in the arms of their glowing goddess. He woke to the hum of weapons charging. She didn't flinch. She didn't rise. She simply lay beside him, one arm across his chest, her eyes open and unbothered. "Stand," one of the guards commanded. voice like cracking crystal. The human sat up, his muscles taut, the glowing mark on his chest burning, brighter in the presence of their weapons. He didn't know what to reach for. There was no armor, no gun, just his skin and her. But she moved first. She stood, completely bare, completely unafraid, and raised a single hand. "I claimed him," she said softly, but her voice echoed like thunder through the chamber. "And Care has accepted it." The guards staggered. The priest trembled. "You did what?" the elder whispered, stepping forward. "He's human, a war thing, alive." She cut him off. "He is alive and mine. He's a weapon." "No," she said, glancing back at the human. "He's the reason I remember I have a heart." The silence was deep, electric. The chamber vines pulsed with warning. Then, suddenly, the guards raised their weapons. They saw a threat. She saw truth. For stories where love shatters law, hit subscribe and walk through fire with us. "Touch him," she said coldly, "and I will unmake your bloodlines." They froze, and he, the broken, discarded, half-dead human from a world Earth had already abandoned, stood up, unashamed, naked, marked by her touch, and glowing brighter by the second. "I didn't ask for this," he said, his voice steady. "I didn't want to be worshipped. I didn't come here to be holy. But you are," she whispered behind him, stepping closer. Resting a hand on his shoulder, the high priest's voice cracked. "He's not one of us. He doesn't understand Care's ways. He's dangerous." "He is," she agreed. "But so am I, and you loved that, until I gave my danger a name." The priest stumbled back. "You think love is weakness?" She went on, her voice rising. "You think surrender? To touch is corruption. Then you've never known the kind of fire he gave me." She stepped forward, fingers laced in the human's, standing tall and proud beside him. "He made me tremble. He made me feel. And that makes me stronger than you've ever feared." The chamber trembled. Care itself seemed to stir. And then the guards lowered their weapons, one by one, not because they accepted him, but because they realized they couldn't stop her. She was theirs, no longer. She was his, and she pulled him closer, not in defiance, but in devotion. Later, in the silence, after the chamber emptied, she lay beside him again. No guards, no priests, just the weight of what they'd done, what they were. Her fingers traced the glowing symbol on his chest, now permanent, now pulsing in sync with her own. "You understand what happens now?" she murmured, breath soft against his neck. "They'll try to take you from me," he said, pulling her closer. "No," she replied, eyes locked with his. "They'll try to take you." He stared at her. "Will you let them?" She didn't answer with words. She straddled him slowly, skin to skin, her palms sliding across his chest. Her hips settled against his like a queen claiming her throne. Her breath hitched, her eyes glowing brighter as she lowered herself onto him, slow, sacred, unhurried. "I pull you closer," she whispered, moving with him like a prayer coming true, "because I'd rather burn this world than watch them take what's mine." They called it treason. The council, the priests, the highborns who lived behind mirrors and whispered laws like lullabies to keep their empires asleep. They didn't care that he bled for her or that she loved him. They only saw a human marked with sacred glyphs, a threat with skin, a mortal who had touched the untouchable and made her moan in front of the stars. They summoned her, not with a request, but a sentence: return, renounce, cleanse. And she answered by lighting the sky on Fire. It started with a single ship, then a fleet, then the outer rings of Care herself, pulsing red with warning. They sent soldiers, machines, old gods awakened from sleep crystals, with rusted minds full of judgment. And through it all, she stood beside him, not behind him, beside. He had never seen her like this before, wrapped in celestial armor that shimmered, like her bare skin once did, eyes glowing brighter than the suns behind her. And beneath the crown she'd cast aside, she held his hand, tight. "I'm scared," he whispered, feeling the rumble of war around them. "Good," she said, gripping him tighter. "So am I, but we'll fight." "No," she said, "we'll decide." Asterisk. She defied the stars for one man. If this ending made your heart race, subscribe and witness the next surrender to love. The battlefield was orbit, ships circling, priests chanting in their hollow domes. She stepped forward. Alone, the human behind her bare-chested, still marked, still hers. Their link was visible now, a glowing thread between hearts. The head priest appeared through projection, massive face in a ring of flame. "You would trade eternity for this thing," he spat. She smiled. "I would trade eternity for one night that felt real." "He will die. He must die. You know this." "I do," she said, voice steady. "And so will anyone who tries to touch him." The priest raised his hand. A signal. Missiles launched. But before they could reach her, she moved. The glyphs on her skin flared with violent brilliance. Care's light poured through her pores, and with one scream, half rage, half ecstasy, she shattered the sky. The missiles disintegrated. The ships cracked. The old gods bowed, and in that moment, the stars did not look away. They watched as she walked back to him, glowing, trembling, victorious, and dropped her armor at his feet like ash. She kissed him then, not with hunger, with home. That night, on a ruined balcony above a silenced sky, she pulled him into her lap. His hands trembled against her hips. Her thighs wrapped around him like wings. She rode him slowly, deliberately, not for pleasure, but for claiming. Every breath was a vow, every thrust a promise, every moan her decision etched into the bones of the cosmos. And when she came, trembling and gasping his name, it wasn't just climax, it was coronation. Her temple had no roof, no altar, no congregation, only him. And when the stars blinked above them, no longer hostile but quiet, watching, they seemed to understand. This was no longer about war, it was about worship, and she had made her choice. The end.